The New York Police Department throws a temper tantrum. That's right. The New York Police Union president, Mike O'Mara, is unhappy. He is not happy at all. He says that they deserve respect. They should not be treated like animals and thugs.
Derek Chauvin, they are not him. He killed someone. We didn't. We are restrained. And you know what? I'm saying this to all the cops here. Because you know what? Everybody's trying to shame us. The legislators, the press, everybody's trying to shame us into being embarrassed about our profession. Stop treating us like animals and thugs and start treating us with some respect. That's what we're here today to say. We've been left out of the conversation. We've been vilified. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Trying to make us embarrassed of our profession. 375 million interactions. Overwhelmingly positive. Nobody talks about all the police officers that were killed in the...
All right, so Mr. O'Mara, he demands respect. All right, you understand this, folks? Do not treat him like an animal. Do not treat him like a thug. The 30 to 50,000 New York police officers, they feel alone and they feel vilified. They are not animals and thugs. They deserve your respect. And of course, we've seen that. We've seen law enforcement just over the course of this last couple of weeks, since the George Floyd stuff. I mean, I personally have seen just upstanding, very good, very law-abiding, very respectful, open to conversation, law enforcement all around New York. And so certainly Mr. O'Mara has a point.
He is fleeing! He's bleeding out of his ear! He's bleeding out of his ear! Get him better! What the fuck you walking up on me? I'm on the ground! Get the fuck away! Stop! Y'all don't want this shit! Back up! Get off the step!
Right out of Buffalo. Yeah, out of Buffalo, New York. Yeah, presumably part of the same union over there. Just acting, upstanding. That guy, of course, deserved to have his body thrown by two cops and have his head cracked open on the middle of the concrete. Certainly not thuggish behavior there. Certainly not acting like animals. Somebody shouts out, he's leaking, as he's got blood literally, pooling in the back of his head and coming out of his earlobes. They didn't need to stop and actually help him either. They didn't need to get him medical attention. All they needed to do was just kind of walk right over him. One cop stops. If you watch closely, he kind of stops to pick up, to help, because he realizes that guy just cracked his head open. You can hear it on the video. You can hear the sound of his head hitting the pavement. It's very loud. One cop wants to stop and help him. Obviously, major mistake. You don't need to do that when somebody's laying on the ground and bleeding. So his supervisor just kind of pulls him up and says, hey, get back to work, because this is what we do as police officers. We are very good. We are not animals. We are not thugs. We are just allowed to do whatever it is we want. Right, Mr. Police Union Chief? Here is their response. First, of course, that is all nonsense. What you saw there was animalistic behavior. They were acting like thugs. They cracked a 75-year-old man's head on the ground. My understanding is that he's still in the hospital. Here is what they had to say about that. So the department initially released a claim saying that it was a skirmish. During the skirmish, one person was injured when he tripped and fell. He was injured when he tripped and fell. Oh, did he? Was the sidewalk uneven? Were his shoelaces untied? Looked like your officers pushed him and he fell. Police were reportedly clearing the area. They were out after curfew, different angles. There was no evidence of physical provocation on the elderly man's part. Went viral. Both of those cops were immediately suspended without pay. And he is, the man who fell and hit his head is, of course, reportedly in stable condition. And so does this look like he tripped and fell? Does that look anything like that? Looks like those two cops didn't like what he was doing. Now, there's some, evidence, or there's some indication. I think President Trump actually tweeted that he was reaching for their belt, or he was using a scanner or something. And there's other, evidence on the internet that are saying this whole thing is fake. It's falsified. It's been fabricated. This guy had something on the back of his head. Then he's running a blood tube or something. I don't know what that theory is. Looked to me like two cops pushed a 75-year-old elderly man and he cracked his head open. You could hear it on the video. You can hear his head hit. So I don't know necessarily how you fake that. But this is a response to the protests. This is what Mr. O'Mara was saying. Why are we treating these people like animals and thugs when they're just, they're not doing anything wrong other than cracking heads open of 75-year-old elderly men who were just out, protesting for their rights, which is a perfectly normal, good, valid American lawful tradition. So, it's hard for me to understand why people would categorize police as thugs and animals. Very strange. Maybe Mr. O'Mara will watch this video and some light will be shined upon him. Okay, these two guys were charged with second-degree assault. Robert McCabe, Aaron Torgalski. So they've been charged with crimes. Aaron was 39 and Robert is 32. Turned themselves in on Saturday after footage of them shoving 75-year-old Martin Gugino. They both pleaded not guilty. They were released without bail. The officers had been suspended without pay after a TV crew captured the confrontation the night before. If convicted, they face up to 7 years in prison. Police officers have stood by their colleagues on Saturday. A crowd of off-duty officers, firefighters, and others gathered outside the courthouse in a show of support for the accused officers, cheered when they were released. They were both released. McCabe's lawyer said that after the arraignment, prosecutors didn't have grounds to bring the felony. Decorated, saying decorated military officer, clean record as a police officer. Okay. Yeah. So typical defense attorney stuff, doing his job, needs to do it and represent these guys to the best of his ability. But maybe that was just an isolated incident. Maybe the cops by and large are not acting like animals and thugs. There's a video that I had on the last episode of the show that kind of shows I think 10 to 15 different clips of some of this stuff, but that's from other parts of the country. Let's see if there's anything else going on in New York. Let's take a look.
Authorities are certainly looking into that and looking into the actions at officers, and at the same time promising the appropriate action there. But if you just step back
there's
for
another
second,
cop
we also
just throwing a young woman
are seeing
just
what is
right
very
on the
complex,
ground.
very difficult
Boom.
situation for many people here on the ground and really across the country here, because what you have law
and you can
enforcement
see
officers,
she's probably 110
authorities
pounds.
who have recognized.
And her shoe actually comes off. So her shoe comes off. That cop pushed her so hard. We don't see, what happened previous to that. But here's the point. This type of stuff is happening across the board. You can find literally about 1,000 clips of this type of garbage going on with law enforcement. Mr. O'Mara, the reason why people are treating you like animals and thugs is because your cops are acting like animals and thugs. There's no way around it. We have video evidence of your cops slashing tires, punching people, breaking things, running cars through barricades, impacting physically people who are just on the streets peacefully protesting. So, of course, we're going to treat you like that. Of course, you don't get to be a part of this conversation. You're the problem. You people are so tone deaf. It's astounding to me. We didn't see it here because the clip is kind of focused in on his face. But when he comes out, this entire scene, this thing was so poorly orchestrated. This entire audience is a bunch of white males who, by the way, I happen to be one. I happen to be a white male, but there are certain things that you just do. How clueless do you have to be? The whole country is sort of angry at white cops killing black cops or killing black people. And you're just going to, parade a bunch of white people on stage while you deliver a speech that says you're tired of being vilified and you're going to stand up and you're going to refuse to be treated like animals and thugs. Guys, not the right time to be having this conversation. What a terrible look. How just insanely tone deaf do you have to be to get up there and start screaming at the rest of the country for problems that your department, your officers are directly causing?